All right, welcome with Let's Get Real with Mindset and Money. Here with me again is Michelle DeKaiser, and I'm Cheyenne with Inspiring Solutions for You. And Michelle has, of course, Connecting Mamas. Today, we were coaching on organizing your day. Have you ever found yourself in super chaos, doing the same repetitive motions and wondering why you're not getting anywhere? We picked apart kind of some of her mind hacks of what was going on today in our session. And I referred back to a system called Bank. I learned this from Michelle Lee, who's part of the Bank system. So I'll just preface that I am not a coach or affiliated with Bank. I've just learned about it, have used it in my business, and it helped me analyze where Michelle was kind of breaking down and end up doing the same process over and over again. And it helped us kind of let her have some aha moments to find that organization, those key pieces of where she was going. And so just to get started with that, I'll just kind of explain what we found out with Michelle. So how Bank works is you have 4 different categories that you organize of things that make sense. I was able to do that with Michelle just by working with her previously, and I started thinking, wait a minute, I know how she works. So she likes knowledge, so she's always seeking knowledge. She loves to help people, which is nurture. So the first, you put 4 things in order, and the first of those 4 things would be nurture and knowledge for her. And then I figured out that her middle is actually blueprint. Blueprints love their planning and schedules and organizing tasks. And then action are the action takers, which isn't really where she likes to go. She likes to take action on what she likes to do, but not always on the other things. And so with that knowledge, it helped me realize that what she's doing is she's always seeking knowledge because she doesn't feel like she has enough within her. And then her third position is actually what she does out of stress. So because she feels stressed in her business, then she's going back to needing all these different tools and tasks and schedules. And instead, she's just working herself down this rabbit hole of finding out that she just kept going to that as her crutch. Like her stress mode was, oh, how can I lay this out on a planner, a scheduler? Not that using planners or schedules are a bad thing, but when you're using them as your stress mode, once you recognize it, then you can start to go, wait a minute, I need to keep it simple, sweetie. And what I've learned about myself is my third position is action, which in money, that made it challenging because my stress was to always just go find the next best program because I'm also knowledge nurture. But because those are switched, I wasn't looking for how to organize myself. I was looking for the next best thing to get me forward faster. Once I knew that, I'm able to go, oh, wait a minute. Stop. It's just the action talking. I don't need to buy another program because I guarantee I have some book or other plan already on the shelf. And I just need to actually go back to it and implement it. So what that looked like was helping Michelle set up a better schedule and just keeping it simple. Put it on paper, schedule it every 30 minutes, set an alarm, and then now that she knows that that's where her mind goes when she's stressed out, now she can put that pause on it. Wait a minute. I'm just getting down the rabbit hole of wanting to schedule this out. And instead, now she can put the pause on. So Michelle, with that conversation, what did you learn? How do you think that's going to help you in your business?
I think I need to start with taking just a deep breath. That was a lot, Cheyenne. But when we were talking earlier, I feel like that's a part of the planning. Then also, I feel like I do have the tendency to like, what is the next best action or plan I can take, right? And then just acknowledging these things and identifying where you're at in your decision making and what's making you forward and what actions are you not taking and why aren't you taking them? Kind of looking at those. So when Cheyenne kind of broke that down for me, it's like, oh, I need to pause. And it was funny, even as we were talking, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm just going to go get a piece of paper. She's like, just get it into a document, just make it simple. And I was like, oh, maybe I should just be doing this in Trello. She's like, stop. You don't need to like make your system so organized. I mean, down the line, if it's working for you and you want to customize that later as something, that's one thing. But a lot of times what I would do is like, oh, well, I need it in a certain way before I can get to work. As my husband likes to always used to say, it's like, I need dominoes in a row. And if one of the dominoes gets pulled out, all of a sudden I'm like, do. And I feel like that's how I was when I talked to you earlier, and we weren't even planning on doing this live or anything, but it was in the essence of discovering that I can't be on, we both knowing this aren't the only ones in how we plan our day. So now when we're looking at this, how do we plan it, is in terms of this concept of time blocks, right? Putting down the different sections of what you're doing. So Cheyenne was simply saying, well, what are your time blocks? Like, start listing them out. And she's like, put the timer on, don't go down a rabbit hole. So I start listing out what time blocks could I work on. So I end up breaking it down by, I'll just list them for you guys: video, blog, funnel, content, admin stuff, client stuff, and research. And so what I can do is I can go into my day, which she gave me this nifty little just daily sheet of 15-minute increments, right? But the night before, I can simply write in, which I meant to do today, tomorrow's already, which I have not. I will get to that later today, but I wasn't sure where I was going to finish today, so I didn't want to get too far ahead and say, oh, well, I can just put this off until tomorrow versus be able to do it now. And so I can even just put those blocks in here. I can just put the letter in here, saving myself time, and or putting what step, because in the sheet, I wrote down what steps are in that time block. I could write out, well, what one do I need to do tomorrow during that time period? So I could put, for instance, I could just simply put admin that I need to work on, working on making payments tomorrow or something along those lines, whereas those are things listed on there, and I can just write that in there the night before. Because what I always wanted to do was, oh, I need the whole week planned out, or I don't need the whole month planned out. I need the whole year planned out before I can do these things. And she's like, just get started with it. So if you have just your plan for tomorrow, then, and keeping yourself accountable as you keep working towards it, then certain things will start becoming more in sync. Like on Mondays, I do these things or things, but I can just start with this process. So my biggest question was, where does my time go? And I wasn't able to answer that question. And so with this process, my goal is to be able to answer, where is my time going, and what are my needle movers that I'm actually working on versus circling around.
Right. And what we found is, so because she had this time block idea, she was stuck in wanting to do the time block, which is great. And so we broke it down into having, so she blocks out certain things go under different lists, different accomplishment, different outcomes. She's looking for the outcome now instead of the task, just to fulfill the time. And with that, because I know how my brain works, when my brain comes up with the next grand idea, it's often running with that. And then before I know it, I've totally not done what I said I was going to do. And so what I recommended is to have these broken down and still use the block system, but we're using it a little differently now. So she's going to, as she gets the next idea of what else she needs to do for, say, her blog, she's not going to go and take action on that. She's actually going to write it down under the section for her blog. Then when she's scheduling her day, in that schedule where she says she's going to do a half hour or an hour on her blog, then she's going to go back to this block and see, oh, yesterday I had this great idea about doing this title or this topic for my blog. That way she can stay on task with what she was actually doing in that moment, instead of going down and, I call them squirrels. I say I need a lot of squirrel cages around in my house, because I would actually go and track that and start working on the blog and totally forget where I was working at before. Now, if we separate it out, now she can just work on that task instead of taking herself away from that task she was actually scheduled in to do. And by just looking at the day, I don't know about you, but I know for me as a mother and as an entrepreneur, is my day never really quite goes as planned. And so when you're trying to plan out a week, a month, it just doesn't happen. And then you just kind of keep going in the same circle loop where you're just not seeing like you're getting anything accomplished. This way, you can actually cross them off. You can see what you're doing. You're not getting trapped in that little squirrel moment of running off with the next bright idea. You can stay on task, know that bright idea is written down for when you're in that spot, but not actually go loping off to the next new thing. And so you can actually get that process done.
Well, I like that. And honestly, though, when you do the time blocks and like list the different things, you're almost doing the long-term planning without even thinking about it. Like, I'm not putting necessarily the countdown, like I want this launch by this point yet. I'm working up to that, But in doing those time blocks, you're like, okay, well, these are the things that need to get done. And so you're still doing kind of the long-term planning. And the other thing I was gonna say is on the back of the handout that or the bottom half, but I'm saying even the back, so like you can flip it over, there's like your checklist and your priorities of things. So if you need to like rework things, you can turn over on the back. Or when you come up with those bright ideas on your little sheet, just turn the paper over, and then you would just write down those bright ideas that when you're planning for tomorrow, you can merge them all together. You either add it to tomorrow's task or you add it to the time blocking when you plan out for tomorrow, rather than that stops. The key is how can you release those thoughts from your mind that you know that they will be addressed, but you don't have to address them in that moment of time, because that's how we go down the rabbit hole. Because all of a sudden, like I went on my phone to do something this morning, and next thing I knew, I was looking on Facebook, and I actually didn't even go on my phone for what I was on there for, which was just to put something in my calendar. And we go down these rabbit holes, right? So when we plan it out ahead, and I've been wanting to do that, and I was so like, okay, well, let me figure out this. Let me make sure I have the week planned out. And when I couldn't get that far in advance, then I would be like, okay, well, I can't do it. And then I would be back at square one. So Cheyenne was just like, well, let's just start with one day right now. Where do we start in this process? And so
then you'd go into analysis paralysis because you'd get down other distractions.
Exactly. And so now we're just looking at the overall picture with our time blocks and our different areas of what we're going to work on. And then we make the daily decisions of what am I going to work towards that, and where am I missing those pieces as I make that plan. And now looking at this, I actually feel relieved, because I'm like, I can actually think I could fill this out within 15 minutes for tomorrow's tasks, without feeling like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me an hour to do next month or something, or whatever that I was like, oh, I have to plan that far in advance. And I think this will just be the baby step I need to start working. I know some people plan better backwards when they lay out all the dates going backwards. And I know, as we were talking about, that I have a women's circle coming up in 2 weeks. So I do want to plan out looking at that date and plan backwards to what content I'm going to plan. So there are some things that we do need to plan backwards. When we're looking at our overall daily plans and just figuring out where is our time going, what are we working on, this is a great way to just get started and then work towards a bigger plan when you get there.
When you're working backwards, you can still use that block system that you were talking about, just by being able to put, oh, I need to put the time frame in that. So say for block content, you know that, oh, by XYZ date, I need to have these different content things written out. You can put all those details in that block. So when you're working on the content section, oh, I need content for these things coming up in 2 weeks. So you still are working the same, but you're giving it a little twist. Instead of trying to make it all work out in a week and plan it all out and do all these other tools and tips and tricks and stuff in there, you're just making it a little bit more simple by going, oh, for that, and also making sure you're planning in your time for your kids. Okay, when I'm traveling to take them to school, when I'm spending time with my spouse, making sure those are all into your schedule, so that that 3 hours, like Brendan Burchard says, is 3 hours before he goes to bed, he stops working. And so making sure that you're scheduling in yourself, because it's really easy to get wrapped up in all the details and trying to get it. And then you just keep spinning your wheels doing the same thing over and over and not really feeling like you're gaining traction on anything.
I love that how you said that, to plan in the other stuff too, because it does also come back to, am I actually benefiting from this as a person? Like, so if we just spend all our time and energy into this and like it kind of sucks the life out of us, then what was the point, right? So, and I don't even like the word balance. I've been trying to get away from the word balance, because I like the idea of rhythm, because yes, we will spend more time, and so like I've taken some time off from the summer to spend some time with the kids. And now tomorrow is actually their first day back. And so it'll be that chance to have that. And that's kind of why I was at the point where I was like, help me, Cheyenne, because I need to, I'm going to have this time and I don't want to squander it. And in terms of and I don't even like the word squander, but in terms of just going down the rabbit hole and not feeling like I have intention behind the time I'm choosing to use, and what is my intention and how do we do that? And so I was been through all these productivity and different things, and love the idea of the time blocking and how we associate that, but how do we put that into our day and associate that. So I've struggled with trying to do the long-term planning. Like I'm just not ready for that yet, or maybe never will. Maybe I just need to be a daily planner and just go along. 'Cause I'm definitely more of a dreamer in terms of seeing the vision, but then putting that vision into place. And so I think acknowledging, where does our monkey brain go? And so, like you said, mine went to planning. Mine also went to, oh, well, what's the next fastest way to get this next thing, or what course is going to help me get that? But then it's like I don't finish any of those things. I keep starting, and then I'm like, okay, well, it's time to plan again because I have all these new ideas, and how do I put them all together? And then it doesn't go anywhere. And so I don't know if any of you moms or any of you business people out there are feeling that way, because even with the mom life, with the schedule of how do we schedule our kids into all this, especially when school starts and all the activities and things between the schedule and the driving in the car, and how do we make use of that time? And also the one thing I do want to address as we're talking about this is the car time, because there will be a lot of car time. How do we take advantage of it rather than just let it slip away? Because that is our connection time with them as well. So it's in terms of either listening to, making sure that you're intentional about what you're listening to together, whether it's a podcast or it's a story or something you guys want to share together, or whether you use that opportunity to have conversations, or even as you get to red lights. I love the red light gratitude, whereas instead of feeling like the red light's in your way, using it as a signal to look at things a different way and looking at that perspective. And so again, that's all part of scheduling out your day and just being intentional with the time you do have.
Yeah, and one of the things that I did when I used to drive a lot more, now my oldest is 16, so he's driving himself this year, which is, oh my, they grow up fast and they're out of the house before you know it. But one of the things that I used to do when they were younger and we spent a lot more time in the car is I had a list of things. What was something you were great at? What was something where you were helpful? What is something that you tried but failed at? 'Cause at least it shows that it's okay to fail and that you can just get back up and do it again. And what was something that you witnessed that your brother did or your other siblings did that was helpful or great or kind? And how did you go out of your way to be kind as well? And then again, like you were saying, what were you grateful for? And sometimes they weren't in the greatest mood. And I was like, even if you're just grateful that the sky is blue, say that, but I'm not going to let you get away with that every day. But sometimes they just needed that out, right?
Yes.
But it allowed them to start looking for the positive, because the negative is there just as much as the positive, and starting to encourage that. And same thing, listening to those podcasts, those encouraging things, because kids are getting a lot more out of what you are doing than you really witness. And I recall when I went to a Tony Robbins event, and Pitbull was on the stage, and he actually said his mom made him listen to Tony Robbins in cassette tapes when he was younger. And and now he's on stage with them. I mean, how fantastic is that? He grumbled because he was a kid, but his mom's like, this is my car and we're listening to what I want to listen to, and wouldn't let him have a say. Sometimes that's what it takes, because they are getting so much out of that, watching you work, watching you do what you do. It can really make a big difference on their motivation in their life too, because they're learning by your example every day.
I completely agree, because we need to be the role models for them. And sometimes I'll give them choices, sometimes I don't. And I actually was even listening to a podcast, Mindset Mentor. And honestly, he does use a little bit of cuss words in there. But we talked about his inflection of it and why he uses it and when he uses it. And actually, it was funny because he even did an episode on why he uses curse word, because it was part of who he was authentically, just to use it for. And so I think it's having those conversations, though. Like, so
Right.
we know it, and we're talking about when to use it, because again, they hear it, and they hear whether you're using it at home or not, because I know they're hearing on the bus. And so it's better to address it and to talk about when to use it, why people use it, and to have those conversations rather than just say, oh, we never use that. And so, but again, you don't have to listen to a podcast with that, but it's still just having those conversations about things that are happening. So it's better for them to hear it from you than to just assume or learn it from somewhere else without knowing they can talk to you about it.
Yeah,
And so I think
you can always throw in your guidance with that as well.
And so again, that comes down to choices of things that again, it's just the intention behind it. Because I know I'm going to be in the car a lot more with the kids and stuff. And so, and when my husband's in the car, they love to listen to stories and they love audiobooks. And so it's just choosing what works for you and how it is. But just the key is intention behind it. The more intention that we have with the choices we make with our time, the better off we're going to be. And so it's not that we don't have enjoyment time or do these things or we always have to be on the go, but if we're intentional about it and we plan out our days, as I'm feeling already the relief of knowing that I can keep track of my time if
Right.
on a way to do it. And so I don't know if anyone else was feeling that stress of just like, it's just so, and use that excuse, it's just so busy. I hear that all the time, like I'm too busy for these things. And we all have the same amount of time. Again, it comes down to the intention and how are you using your time. And
Right.
so biggest way to do that is keep track of it, which I know I was slacking on, feeling that angst because of it. And so I think, so we'll see back. We're gonna have to do another live on this in a week or two to actually, maybe we'll do it next month sometime, just to like give it a few times, see how are things going with implementing something different. And I think we're all on that point, whereas school year seems like a definite point for a lot of people. Like I have to have these things done by this point. There's a new beginning to it, just like new school year, New Year's resolutions, right? But like the kids are going back to school. So how is your day going to shift and what kind of transitions are you going to have because of it? Taking your kids here and there, or what it is, having to work and everything. So just put some thought behind, what do you want your day to look like? Just remember, you do have more control over it than you think you do if you take it.
Well, it's a lot like your money. Your time is going to run away, whether you're doing anything about it or not. But you really can be the driver. Everybody can be busy. You can always fill it in with all these things and go, oh man, I was so busy today, but yet sit back and go, what did I even accomplish? What was the outcome for the day? And you don't even know because you just have went through the motions. Really, you've gotten redundant in your process, and you just go with it. Before you know it, a month, a year has gone by, and you're like, wow, what did I even accomplish? So the goal is to really, you can look back at the schedule and see, cross it off as you've accomplished that thing on the schedule. And then you can go back and, wow, I really made it. I heard one time, and I won't quote it correctly, I know, but it was close to the point of, if you practiced 18 minutes a day on any new thing, whether it was a foreign language or an instrument or something like that, you'd be more proficient at it than 95% of everybody else. And that's just 18 minutes. So just think, if you sat down and did your schedule 20 minutes a day, how much better after a year you would be with your time. Because once you start to set it out as a schedule, you'll start to really realize where your time wasting is going. When are you the most or least productive? Then you can start to plan. Are you a night person? Great. Spend your time with the things that are key at night and fill it up your mornings. Maybe you're not really awake until after your first pot of coffee. Well, maybe that's a good time to go through all those 1,000 emails that hit your account. The monotonous, and same whether vice versa. If you're a morning person, put those as your key things in the morning, and your sorting of the email at night when you're just trying to put in that last half an hour when your mind is checked out for the day. Do your email or the simple things then. So it just allows you to start to learn better of how you do better, and schedule it day by day, and not get so wrapped into the whole planning the whole lifetime, because everything I've planned for long term never really comes to terms with the time that I plan them in, right? They're always on the God's time is the way I look at it. And it's not on my time. And so, but you can control what you're doing with that time every day.
So I think we're gonna just end it tonight with just looking at the intention behind, what do you really want? And so we all say that we're too busy, we've got all this going on. And yes, everyone has a lot of activities, a lot of things going on, but it is the mindset when we use that word busy too often that distracts us from doing stuff. And so let's just put some intention behind it and figure out what do you want to do? If you're happy with your schedule, that's great. But if you want to do some changes with that schedule, let's try just tomorrow. And what can we do to plan out tomorrow today? And looking at that.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to look back at your schedule and go, what worked and what didn't? Why didn't it work? Just kind of do that 5-minute, breakdown of how the day went at the end of your day, and then make sure you celebrate those wins. Even if it's one thing you got right out of your schedule and you had to flow with the rest of life the rest of the day. Okay, so you learn from it. What are you going to do different tomorrow? And be sure to celebrate everything, all those little wins, because all those little wins really add up to that long-term plan that you've been so scared to run away from, right? So It's all there. You've got it all within you. And so, Michelle, with that, where can they find you?
You can come to connectingmamas.com. And if you're listening to this before September, next Sunday, what's date is that? I'm lost track of my dates. But next, the 17th, I will be doing a women's circle. Again, it's for all women just to come and see what it's all about, because the idea of what is a circle, it's about community, it's about connection, it's about learning how to be your vulnerable self again, which is such a, what's the word I'm trying to look for right now? But we're really just trying to get back to our authentic selves and trying to figure out who are we again. And that's what this is all about. How do we schedule? How do we be intentional with all this stuff, with who we are? And so the Women's Circle gives you that space and judgment-free zone to help figure that out, because a lot of times it's so much easier when we do it together.
Absolutely. And I'm with you on that. I love the Women's Circle, going and listening to other people, because it helps you realize that you're not in this alone. There are so many people that are going through not your shoes. Obviously, you wear your own, but everybody has a thing they're either gone through, going out of, or going into. And you just, sometimes all you need is a shoulder to cry on, a hug to receive, or a high five for something you done well. And having that Mama Circle is such a supportive connection for other women. It's a beautiful connection for sure. And with that, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, either by searching my name, Cheyenne Severson, or Inspiring Solutions for You. My website is still under construction. We've had a lot of life going on. We'll just put it that way. Someday it will be out there live. But for right now, LinkedIn is the best platform you can find me on. And with that, we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Be happy to have a discovery call with any of you, and help you out where I can. And same with Michelle. You have any